We're getting close to Thanksgiving. You know, a lot of people are interested in prison. What is prison really like? What really goes on in the prison? How do drugs, cigarettes, alcohol, and all that get into prison? I'm going to explain this all to you. So please bear with me. But before you go to prison, there has to be an indictment. Once the indictment, the feds or police arrest you. Now, I knew most of the rules in prison before I went there because I was around Sonny Franchise and Jimmy Cacci like on a daily basis. And you think we tell stories here on YouTube? You should hear these guys tell stories. So, we, Jimmy and Sonny told me all sorts of stories, what it's like in prison, what to do, and, and what the first rules of prison are. Keep your mouth shut. Be careful who you talk to, and don't talk to anybody else about any of your crimes. Nancy, thank you. You're the first one here. I want to thank you, Nancy. Nobody else come today. Maybe today's a bad day. All right, what do you think? I don't know. But let me talk a while. Now, for those of you who have not bought my book is very different than any other gangster book you will read. Because in the back of my book, I have all my court papers. Now, these are papers you got to carry with you when you go from prison to prison. Okay? You better have them. All right? Well, there's 7 here? Oh, yeah, it says 8. I didn't see that. Okay? Now, I'm going to read. It's in the back of my book. If you haven't bought my book, you could read all this yourself. All right? The first thing is from the Department of Justice. This is on the indictment that I was in. All right? I need a mic. I need this here. For immediate release, contact Robert Nardoza, United States Attorney's Office. They got his phone number. Okay? Press release. Colombo organized crime family, acting boss, underboss, and 10 other members and associates indicted. Charges include racketeering, conspiracy, robbery, extortion, narcotics trafficking, and loan sharking. Now, out of what I just read, guess who had the robbery? Was me. And the narcotic trafficking was me. Brooklyn, New York. I gotta clean this thing. I should have cleaned this before, folks, so bear with me. All right? Brooklyn, New York. A 17-count superseding indictment charges 12 defendants. Thomas Gioli, the acting boss of the Colombo organized crime family of La Cosa Nostra. The Colombo family, John Sonny Franche, the Colombo family underboss. Additional Colombo family members and associates was unsealed today in federal court in Brooklyn. The indictment charges racketeering, acts of murder, murder conspiracy, and felony murder. The charges were announced by Benton J. Campo, United States Attorney for the Eastern District of New York. And then it goes on to list all of us and everything else. Okay? And this, what was the date on this? This was June 8th, 2008. Now, folks, my paperwork's in the back of my book. So what I tell you, I have receipts to prove it. I don't run. I don't hide from nobody. I was not an informant. Now, your paperwork, when you get transferred from prison to prison, you better have your paperwork, okay? Because somebody might ask you for it. And if they ask you for it and you were a rat, you're going to be thrown out of that. You're going to be taken out so fast, it's unbelievable. And sometimes the officials actually fix the papers up to try to get a rat in different prisons. That happened up there at Lompo. But one guy found out who the guy was, that he was a rat. You gotta remember, we are allowed to make phone calls, all right, and with approved people on the list. There's Reef Ride, Queen, Alex, thank you, all right? Now, let me take it step by step. The day that I got arrested. I was in my apartment over on Swall Drive here in Beverly Hills. That morning, I was up early as usual, had my coffee, I had my dog Maggie, okay, and my newspapers, and I had the news on to Fox News. When I started hearing car doors opening, and shutting. Now, folks, I live on a street back then that was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Right away, I knew what it was. Just knew it was going to come down. Sure as shit. Pounding on my door, open it. I had a cigarette in my hand. FBI agent knocked the cigarette out, turned me around, put the cuffs on. We were making all noise. I mean, I tell you, there were a lot of them. There was 20-something agents. It was crazy. They were all around the block. And they had the FBI, LAPD, the Beverly Hills Police, the sheriff. It was crazy for one guy. I was 63 years old at the time. My son was living with me. They went in his room. He woke up. He come out. He thought I had a TV on too loud. And they went into his room. They come out with a little bag of marijuana. What's this? I said, you got no search warrant. Leave it alone anyway. Why you arrested me? And they showed me a paper. And the only thing I saw was cocaine conspiracy. I laughed at him. I said, I'll be out by dinner time. Now they take me out and leave, and I tell my son, call Josh and call Danny. Danny Brookman was my lawyer here in Los Angeles. Josh was the bail bondsman. And they bring me down to the courthouse here in Los Angeles, downtown. And they bucked me and all this here. And then all the agents, they sit me in a room with a long, big table, and I'm in the corner of the room. And like 10 or 12 other agents come in, all sit down, they all had notepads. I looked up again. I said, gentlemen, I'm not talking to you without my attorney. They immediately got right up and left. From there, they bring me downstairs below the courthouse to the bullpen, and I had to wait for my court hearing. which didn't happen until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm sitting down there, it was cold. They give you a bologna sandwich. It was green. When you hear about green bologna, nobody's lying. It's really green. All right? So, before I continue, I want to thank all you, Nancy Lyon, everybody else that hit that thanks button yesterday to help me out. Uh, I don't know if you're all here, but I want you to know how much it's appreciated. All right, and I love you all from my heart. Okay, and a lot of people writing comments about a Cash App. I don't have Cash App. I have PayPal, and it's right up there in my profile. If anybody wanted to send me anything through PayPal. So I just wanted to throw that out. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, what are you waiting for? Please do, because you don't know when I'm going to come on. But now let's get back. Okay, so now my court hearing, and I see my lawyer walking towards me with papers like this, and a very solemn face. And the first thing he says to me, he says, Ori, he says, I told you, if you ever got wrapped up in a RICO case, I can't represent you. I don't know anything about it. Danny was good for anything else, state cases, whatever you need. Actually, he represented Robert Downey Jr. He's the lawyer that got Robert Downey Jr. off years ago. But RICO was out of his ballpark. And I understood that. I didn't know it was RICO. He said, but let's try to get you bail. So, look at folks. I never fled from the law before. I was arrested several other times, okay? I never missed a court appearance in my life. And thank you, Sheridan and Angie. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Sheridan. God bless you. Sheridan just hit that thanks button, folks, all right? And helping me out here. So, anyways, the U.S. Attorney here in Los Angeles gets up, well, Your Honor, Mr. Spado has several warrants. I had no warrants, not one. Danny looks at me, I look at him. He said, all right, what warrants? I said, I had no idea. I said, I don't have any. You took care of everything, Danny. He said, well, we can't fight it. Agree to extradition. Oh, I told Your Honor, so I agree to be extradited back to New York. And so now they take me out, and then you walk under, it's like a mile walk, under the ground, all right? Where you go, come right up, and you're in MDC, Los Angeles. And from there, they check you in, they examine you, ask you what medicine you're on, and so forth, okay? And then finally, they bring you up to a unit. And in the moment I walked in the door, black guy goes to the black, a Spanish guy goes to the Spanish, and a white guy comes to me and said, you're white? I go, yeah, come with me. And he set me up, showed me where my bunk was, introduced me to the other guys, and everybody, knew who I was immediately, and it wasn't bad, okay? All right? It wasn't bad, folks. I'm not going to say it was terrible, okay? But, my mindset changed immediately when I was locked up. Okay, it happened. Here I am. I got to accept it. You see, folks, we have to learn to accept things that happen to us in our lifetime, whether good or bad, okay? Because we all have good and bad days. Things happen to each and every one of us. I'm no different than any of you. Maybe the bad things that happened to me were a little bit more severe, but it was my life, okay? And it eventually had to come, and it had to happen. So I was there for at MDC Los Angeles for about a week before they took me out. The marshals picked me up, drove me to Victorville. Now, there's a prison in Victorville. Mr. RG, $1. Thank you so much, Mr. RGH. Folks, anything you could afford is deeply appreciated. I understand times are tough, but I want to thank you all for what you're doing here, okay? You got a thought, I just went with the flow. He's fine. So, anyways, drive you to Victorville and put you on Con Air, okay? And then Con Air, you fly. Then the first stop was Arizona, I remember. Arizona, you fly in, they release some inmates, get out, they've got to go to prison in Arizona. New prisoners get on. From there to Denver, you stop in at every city. Finally, Oklahoma, which is the hub. And Oklahoma is really funny. When a plane lands in Oklahoma, okay, you are right there. When you walk out of the plane, you are immediately in the prison in Oklahoma. And remember, we're all chained and shackled. And so you have the guards on both sides, all right, taking the chains and shackles off. They bring you through, they give you your clothing, your bedding, etc. Once again, and bring me up to a unit. And I'm in that unit, I don't know anybody, but one guy looked at me and he approached me, he was a nice guy. He said, "You're Italian, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And he introduced himself. And he was a Gambino guy, being transferred to another prison. So he was my friend there I was there for like a week, a little over a week. And what was really funny, a plane came in that afternoon in Oklahoma. And they had Sonny Franchise. Now, Sonny was in prison in Ohio. So he was being transferred to New York. Obviously, he and I are both on the same indictment. But they didn't put Sonny in my unit. They put him in another unit. But guys who came in, they say, "Hey, Sonny Franchise was on the plane." So now I knew that the plane left for New York Mondays and Thursdays. Monday comes, I'm expecting to hear my name. They announce your name over the loudspeaker. I expect to hear my name. I don't, but I hear Sonny's name. And I go, why the hell aren't they taking me and Sonny at the same time? Because we got to go in front of the same magistrate for when we get to Brooklyn. But they didn't. They waited until Thursday to take me. So I had to sit there a few more days. And I eventually found out why they did that. Okay, and the reason they did that is when Sonny got to Brooklyn, there was a meeting. His son Johnny, who was an informant, his son Michael, who you all know, okay, with the FBI and the U.S. Attorney trying to convince Sonny to go Team America. Obviously, he did not, okay? But that's the reason that they separated Sonny and I. And so anyhow, finally I get to MDC, Brooklyn, and they put me in the old building. Okay, and the old building happened to be where Diddy was. And I'm going to be telling you all about Fort Dix. You're going to want to hear about it, stick around, and because you're going to want to know what Fort Dix is like. But anyhow, like I say, you gotta be careful, you gotta be observant, you gotta listen, and you gotta know what you're looking for. When they brought me to my first unit, the first guys in the old building at MDC, Anthony and Mickey Souza were their names. They were brothers from Staten Island, and they were also with the Colombo family on another indictment. They came up to me, Ori, we know who you are, this and that, and you know, we'd like to have you sit with us at our table over there. And I looked at that table. Instantly, I knew something's wrong. I could tell by the guys that were sitting there. They were not Italians. So I said, yeah, let me know, I'll let you know. Let me set up my locker, make my bed, so forth. So now I'm at my locker, and I'm putting things away. When a guy comes up behind me, he says, Ori Spado, 310-273-2811. Had my phone number in Beverly Hills. I turn around. Who are you? How do you have my phone number? He says, Ori. He says, I did time with Sonny. I used to dial your number for him. He says, listen, I noticed you didn't give those guys an answer. I have that table over there. He says, and I'm by myself. He says, you're more than welcome. I said, Joe, I'm going to sit with you. And I took Joe's table. And guess what? The Mickey and Anthony Souza, they were wearing wires in prison. Yeah. They were wearing wires in prison. They turned rats, working for the government inside the prison. So that happens. Don't think it don't happen. It does. All right? And so, anyways, I lost 4 bail hearings. I hated the old building. We were a dorm. There was 120 guys in there. And, you know, the bathroom's there, the kitchen's there. Everything's all in one room. Okay? It's not a fun place. But it wasn't that bad. I mean, you know, there was a lot of noise. Okay? A lot different than my bed at home. Okay? No, it's not, Nancy, against the law. The law could do anything they want to do, okay? They wire up cells. I'll get to that story in a minute. Finally, I got transferred to what we call the newer building, which is an old, dilapidated building, but it's a lot better than the dorms. I happen to like cells better than dorms, okay? And where I had a cellmate at my table was Tommy Gioli. I was in a unit with Tommy Gioli, who was the acting boss. I was there with the boss of the Gambino family and a few other Gambino guys. And one who just got arrested again on this gambling thing, Angelo Ruggiero. And Angelo was one of the cooks for us at MDC Brooklyn. And trust me, our table was just like you saw in the movies, okay? And you know, us Italians, we stuck together. Everybody respected us. The blacks, the Spanish, whatever gang it was, they all respected us. And my best friend there was Charlie Carniglia. Now, Charlie Carniglia happens to be the guy that made John Gotti's bodies all disappear. He's doing 40 years plus life, and he's in Cannon. All right? Yes, initiate, yes, the beast over with Michael. We ended that long time ago. All right. So a lot of people keep asking me about my beef with Michael Franks. Hey, look, I talked about it before. I wish everybody the best. I don't like rats. That's it. Accept it, reject it. I don't care. But you know what? Let everybody. I'm not the guy to come out here bashing other people. Let other people do that. You got a lot of them bashing each other. Okay? I don't do that. So, anyways, Charlie and I were very close, and he bunked with Angelo Ruggiero. Angelo Ruggiero, while he was at MDC, he bunked with Charlie. Charlie, they wanted real bad. And boy, his trial was a mirrored image of John Gotti Jr.'s trial, which took place in the Southern District. And John Gotti Jr. got off. Charlie did not. Charlie and I were very close. We ate together, we played cards all day together, and we laughed, and you know, Charlie always had a nice box, put the apples in at nighttime, he'd peel them, you know, you use the top of the Pringles can. That's what we use as our razor blades in prison, okay? I think Pringles has changed that, so I don't know what they use now. But you know, even with my own, I never talked about other crimes that I did. You gotta be careful of everybody you're talking to. And folks, by the way, have you noticed all the changes that YouTube has made? You know, I used to really seriously enjoy going to other channels and listening different things, the news ones, some of the gangster stuff, okay? Really did, all right? Long string for your comment, go with the time. So anyway, go with the title. So I'll get back to the title. But anyway, now, you know, they show you 2 or 3 commercials before you could hit the skip button to watch the show. And then you can't see how many subscribers. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. All right? But boy, things just change it like you can't believe. And I used to get 3,000 or 4,000 people viewing my videos after they go up. Now I get 300 or 400. So I don't know what's going on, folks. But anyways, MDC, it was old, it was dilapidated, terrible, just like, I mean, they tell me it's 10 times worse now than it was. So, you know, there's people talking all sorts of things about Diddy and how he's doing his time in prison. Everybody wants to talk about Diddy. Now, my co-defendant, Chris, who was one of the youngest defendants on our case, he was at Fort Dix. So I called him up today because I'm confused because they say low security. In normal prisons, you got the camp, a medium, and the USP. The USP has the wall around it. The medium has 2 barbed wire fences around it. The camp has no fences. But Diddy is called like a low medium. It's the same thing, all right? But they're like two people to a room. They get rooms over there. But one thing I couldn't believe that they're doing, the inmates would cut the fence at night, go through the fence, have people waiting with food and drugs or phone, all right, and bring it back in. All right, so that's one thing that happens there. You talk about Diddy doing sexual things at night in prison. Folks, it happens. Okay, it does. For those who want it. It's a very small few guys who are into that there. Okay? Refer being, what do you say? I explained that situation several times. Well, thank you for listening. I explained it again to you, my friend. Okay? But anyhow, so NDC, I got shipped to Lompo. And I didn't really care for Lompo, I gotta be honest with you. It was like I was in Disneyland, and I thought I was going to go to Terminal Island. Terminal Island is in San Pedro, which is 45 minutes from me, and it's a medical facility. And my judge recommended to the BOP to send me to Terminal Island, but they didn't. Instead, they sent me to Lompo, which is 5 hours away from Los Angeles. Now, in my mind, I thought I was going to be going to Terminal Island, where I could have all my friends in Los Angeles visit me, I could do business, Well, none of that happened. So ultimately, I didn't want visitation, to be honest with you. My son came once with his girlfriend. Then he came another time. He brought my guy Charles with me. Okay, Charles was from Montenegro, but he was my main guy. And then Joe Prevotel, president of Queen Mary, he came one time. And a friend from England came one time. That was it, folks. 4 visits in my 30 months there. And, when an inmate goes out to visit, you got to be stripped shirts, change your clothing, okay? Then they bring you out to the visiting room. And then when you leave, you're stripped searched again. Trust me, it's a hassle for the inmates. And it's not good for the people who visit, because you get searched and all that shit when you come into the prison. So, but, for some people, they like the visitation. I told you yesterday that you don't have much stress in prison. And you really don't, because you only got to take care of yourself, and you don't have to worry about others. Now, some people do, all right? Some less fortunate, they got to worry how their wife and families are going to survive. I understand that there. I was worried, okay, about my son, okay, who was just starting out here, and he was living with me. Had my apartment. Now he was responsible to pay the rent, which was a lot of money back then. And I wasn't earning. Thank God I had a lot of money in my checking account and some cash buried around the house that he was able to use. But it was my children who made sure my commissary was flush every month. Because in prison, your commissary is a lot. You do a lot with what you buy, how you eat, okay? We got somebody from Indonesia here. Hello, Indonesia. And then you got to use that money for your phone calls. Because in federal prison, You don't call collect, all right? You gotta have money on your books and you dial the person that's on your approved list. And some people don't get approved. I don't know how, but I got Jimmy Kachi on my list and they approved it. And by this time, Jimmy was old and, from prison, I remember my last conversation with Jimmy. I called, Jimmy was living down in Palm Springs. Yes, flat truther, I do believe in Jesus. Okay? And called Jimmy. I said, Jimmy, you don't sound right. What's wrong? Oh, he says, I just got out of the hospital. He says, he ran. He was driving and ran into the back of a garbage truck. I said, Jimmy, you don't sound good. You gotta get back to the hospital. I said, call Betty right away. I said, as soon as I hang up, call Betty, have her take you to the hospital. And he did that. That much I know. Well, now I wait a few days. I try calling again, no answer, no answer, no answer. A week, 2 weeks, no answer. And right away, I had the feeling that Jimmy had passed away. And finally, I was able to get the phone number of his sister in Buffalo, New York. Got it on my list. I called her, and she said, Ori, Joey and I were there. Yes, Jimmy passed away. We knew you were calling. Okay, all right, we seen the message machine. But, they can't call me back. All right, so that's how I found out that Jimmy had passed away when they brought him back to the hospital. I miss Jimmy. I'm going to tell you. I miss him. He's one guy I miss. But that's life. We just got to keep going, folks. And so I did my time. I had no problem. I kept my mouth shut. I was treated well. My best friend in Lompoc was an inmate named Ignacio. He was Italian from Brooklyn. He had 2 life sentences. He did many years. He was in a USP because he was a good inmate. They transferred him to the medium, okay? And he was crazy. I mean, how many people he killed, he couldn't even give you a number, okay? It was a lot. He had 2 life sentences to do. And in federal prison, a life sentence I think it's 32 or 33 years. And Iggy and I we walked the yard every day together. And we're walking the yard. And he tells me he just finished one of his first life sentence. I looked at him, he was about 60-something years old then. I said, Iggy, I said, you could live and end up getting out of prison. I said, another 32 years. I said, what are you going to do? What's the first thing you would do? Imagine being away in prison for 60-something years and coming out. There's no way that you could pick up all the changes that occurred. You know what Iggy told me? He said, the first thing I'll do, I'll get a gun and I'll go and unalive my probation officer. Because what's the sense of getting out of prison when you've been in there that long? That's your life, okay? He was a great guy. Everybody feared him. He was a great cook. Oh my God, he could cook. You should see the spaghetti and meatballs and stuff that he made me for. All right. We had some great cooks, and I was well respected in Lompoc. I'll say that much. Other inmates. I remember my last birthday there before I was released. Okay. A couple guys from another unit come. Ori, we know it's your birthday. What's your favorite food? I said gnocchis. I love gnocchis. They didn't even know what they were. I explained what they were. They said, we're going to make them for you. I said, how are you going to make them? I thought it was a joke. On my birthday, they were in another unit. They come and get me. And, you know, we had these picnic tables or whatever out in the yard. And she said, we got your gnocchis. I don't know how the hell they did it, but they made gnocchis in prison. And I'm going to tell you, I sat there, these guys were with me, and they were fantastic. So, you know, prison is like any place else. If you do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, you're not going to have any problems. You know? Listen. I tell people to listen. They don't listen. All right, folks, have you all subscribed to my channel here yet? Okay. I wanted to bring that prison story. I hope you enjoyed it. Okay. And that's it, folks. If I don't see you before Thanksgiving, I'm sure I'm going to. Oh, the Chesterfield. Oh, yeah, they're great. I didn't know you were from back there, Reef, right? I didn't know you were from there. Thank you, Nancy. If I don't answer your question, because the reason I don't is because the questions don't make sense. But for those of you who ask intelligent, okay? Also, refresh, so you had to know Riolo, right? I mean, he was the boss there at Turning Stone. He began there. Well, he began in Las Vegas. He and I went to school together. We were very good friends. We're talking about the Turning Stone Casino in Verona, New York, folks. All right, if you're driving past this casino, you're going to think you're in Las Vegas. It's amazing. It's so big, okay? And I hear they're building more hotel rooms. All right? Oh, he did hair for his daughter. Yeah, Frankie and I and his wife, we all went to school together. Frankie and I were very close when he lived in Las Vegas. He's the one who taught me how to play blackjack the proper way, okay? I'll tell that story at another time, all right? So I look at everybody. It is Saturday. Finally, we got some blue sky today, but it's quite cold here. It's only 50-something degrees. And I guess we're in for a cold winter. Everybody, take care. God bless you all. All my love and respect to you all. Take care. I love you. Bye-bye.